up, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of the Talk of the Ring show. If you do not know who I am, and I say this every time, but if you do not know who I am, then that means you are not subscribed. And if you are not subscribed, you're going to be missing so many great episodes. So just take your finger and hit the subscribe button. Go ahead. It's right there. It's sitting. Go ahead. Do it. But, wow, you didn't come here to listen to me. You came to listen to our guest. So let's give a warm welcome to Carl Martin.
Hello, Haley. That was flawless. Absolutely flawless. I loved it.
A lot
I
of times I just speak
I
too fast.
love the intro music really got me vibing too.
Yeah, I love it. Even like when I'm having the worst week of my life, I'll be like doing the podcast or like this music is just catchy.
Yeah,
It
it just
just
gets me going.
gets you going.
Awesome. Thank you
It's
so
been
much
a
for having me on.
Of course, it was a journey. My dad's like, "Oh my god, there's a manager at AXW. Get him on, Harley. Come on." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then like I just asked and it was easy.
Yeah, it was fun to get to talk to you those couple of times you've seen me in the ring,
Yell at
managing
you.
either, with Izzy McCoy or against her. It's been a fun time, and I'm really happy to be here and excited for the hard hitting questions I'm sure you have planned for me.
Most definitely. I mean, I love you and like your vibe in the ring because like every time with like Izzy or like you're going against Izzy and then like you at the end you always try to go with Izzy again and it's like I don't know who you think you are, but I love
Yeah,
every moment of it.
she dropped a pretty gnarly elbow on me last time.
Uh-huh.
But it was, the thing is that she was successful. She
Yeah.
won that match. I brought her a good challenge, and
And try
hey,
taking.
I don't want to get into semantics about it, but it was all for the betterment of Ms. McCoy.
Yeah, I love Izzy. She's the best.
Yeah, she's a very hard worker. Every time I get to a venue, she's usually already there and you
Mm-hmm.
know unloading the truck and we're putting the ring together. I work with her over at AAW as well, Atlantic All Star Wrestling, and that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, she's one of them that puts a lot of hard work into it, like Ian Bush and
hmm
all the other ones. But so we're gonna start with who or what got you into wrestling.
Hmm. I think like when I go all the way back to my first memories of pro wrestling, it was that I didn't like it. And I didn't like it, and my brother forced me to watch it. My older brother, he basically sat me down. He was like, "You're watching it," and I had never really sat down and watched it before. I think I was maybe like 6, and so it's like a Ric Flair match. I don't remember who he was wrestling, but it was like a Saturday morning wrestling show, and Ric Flair, and it hooked me. It actually hooked me. My brother never wanted to watch it with me again then, but I started watching it. So it was kind of like a love hate relationship at first, but I really took to it when like the Attitude Era, Stone Cold, Undertaker, The Rock were all like at their best, and it was like my escape. My father had cancer and passed away when I was around 13,
Oh,
so it was one of those things that helped me to escape that stress,
yeah.
um, and I just grew to really love the art of it. One of the things that I think made me want to get into wrestling, it's really funny. And I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're the My Sacrifice videos from way back when, where it was like to the song of My Sacrifice by Creed, and it was the Undertaker talking about coming out of the curtain and how the feeling would wash over him and how it was the best feeling he'd ever had, and they like had the camera follow him out through the curtain, and that moment just stuck with me ever since I was a kid. And it was like I need to know what that feels like. I gotta know. So then as I got older, I joined the military at like 17 and did that whole gimmick for like 5 years, and then came back, reconnected with some friends, made some new ones, and started going to a lot of like independent shows. So like some friends let me like train up a little bit, do a couple bumps, And then unfortunately I didn't like pursue it right then. When I was like 24, yeah, 23 or 24. And I went off to college at Penn State. So that kind of put a hold on things. Um, and then I ended up doing 5 years at Penn State, got my master's degree, and moved out here to Philadelphia, where I currently live.
Okay, so you far. Like I'm in like Hamburg, Hazleton area, so like you're far.
Yeah, but even then, it's still like one of the shortest trips for me. I love
Yeah,
coming out to Hamburg because it's like maybe an hour and a half at most, and it's a nice
yeah.
drive. It's pretty,
Yeah, and
pretty
it's
easy.
and it's always worth it because wrestling, like, duh,
Yeah, especially at the Hamburg Field House.
it's always a blast. Or even if it's like 1,000 degrees inside, it's always a blast.
Yeah, I just wish they had more fans, like
Yeah.
glowing fans. I mean, never mind. Let's get off this subject.
So you like it was cool that you said like you started watching like when you were about 6 years old. Like that's about the same range. Like my dad took me to my first ever like indie show, and I was like, oh, I like this more than what I'm watching on the TV. Like I can actually like I can hear it. I can like feel the vibration and the vibes. So it was, I definitely prefer the indies over like WWE or NXT anytime because like you don't get that experience in like the indies. Like you don't get to go like right now we having a great conversation. You don't get that in like WWE. Like John Cena, you don't see me doing a podcast with John Cena.
Not yet. Not yet.
Maybe.
That's the point. It's all about stepping
Yeah.
up. And that's the thing. You're easy to talk to. You get out there and you make the connections, and I think that's the deal. Like going to the Monster Factory, I went there for about 5 years and trained under Danny Cage, LSG, Damian Priest, and it was wild. There was so much talent there, and so I got there and I stayed there for so long. I honestly wish I would have spent more time going out, and doing more independence. But it can be tough, especially a place like there really kind of demands your attention. So it was tough, but at the same time, it was getting to work with some amazing talent. A lot of people came through there. We ran a whole program with Abyss. That was a lot of fun. And I hope that more people get to get that kind of value out of wrestling schools. And the more that open up, I think the better. Like Drew Gulak has one opening up out here in Philadelphia, so I'm excited to see how that goes.
No, yeah, and like wrestling, it's amazing, but like there's a lot of hard work that goes into it because like
Yeah.
with me, I'm 16. I want to train. Like I say it all the time, and that's why earlier I was like I am super excited for this because I am all for managers. I want to be a manager myself. I want to scream at
Yeah.
people just like you do. So and it's like it's hard because like right now I'm in the mix of like summer school because I'm graduating a year early.
Hmm.
So I got to do the summer school and then I got 2 jobs. So it's like, well, I don't got really time for training, but like I got to fit it in somewhere.
Right. And I think you're making a wise choice with doing something like this. I think this is way worth your time because it's the networking. And in the
Yeah.
professional wrestling business, it's all about who you know and the last thing you've done for them. So you go out to the shows. How many do you usually go to a month?
Uh, Usually, like right now, because of my 2 jobs, it's only one, but like typically it'd be like 4 to 5 shows a month.
Yeah, like every weekend.
Yeah. And
Eh,
like that's the great thing about wrestling. Like there's always a show every weekend. And I love that.
Absolutely. Like wherever you're at, there's an independent show within 45 minutes of you. I can't
Yeah.
guarantee the quality is going to be good at all of them, but you'll have fun. Hopefully the ticket prices aren't too much. And the
Yeah.
thing is, I think it's really good entertainment for the value and for like families.
Yeah.
It's tough to find a place to take the kids. I prefer to work like kid friendly shows, honestly, just because those are the fans that you really want to play to. That's who
Hmm.
you want to connect with, and that's parents buy the most merch.
Yeah, most definitely. Because then the little kids will be like, "But I want this," and I'll be like, "Fine, just get it." Like that's like with me. I'm 16. I'm still like that to my parents. But now since I got my own job, they're like, "Girl, you got your own money. Go ahead and buy it." And like at the end of the wrestling show, I'll be like, "Well, I'm broke now."
Yeah,
Such a
Yeah,
hard
pretty
life.
soon you'll have to start working the shows, and then you'll earn the money back a little bit.
Yeah, or like that's what I'm like I'm excited for because like with this podcast, like I can help like start my name now, and like once I
Mhm.
turn 18, I'll be like, surprise, I'm here now. I get to yell at people like Carl Martin.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll teach you all the tricks and all the things that you can get into your opponent's heads without getting caught. That's the important thing. I originally wanted to be like a wrestler, but it just wasn't. I'm not the most athletic guy. It just my body has been beaten up over the years from the military. You know, jumping out of airplanes and carrying a lot of heavy
Wow.
stuff, and it just breaks down your knees and your neck over time. So I realized, okay, my bump card's already kind of punched a pretty far way, but I was able to train, and then I just realized management. That's it's so close, like, and I think it's still kind of a lost art. And I don't know that it's necessarily even appreciated. It's tough to justify with a budget that's pretty slim as a promoter to bring in somebody that's not a wrestler. So you have to
Yeah.
create that value.
No, yeah, and like I think especially like with storylines and stuff, the manager just makes it like you said, there's not a lot of managers in the business. Like I
Mhm.
only know you. There's a female manager. Her name's Delilah, and then there's CR O'Malley, and then Mr. Ruda. But that's about it. That
Yeah,
all I know. And it's like it's we have a bunch of wrestlers, and I love these wrestlers. But like we need get our foot in the door. I'll be the one with the generation with the little kids. That's why I love them. And I at shows, that's why I do like free poster making to get them like, so who's your favorite wrestler? And I try to convince them more like into the manager. So then they'll be like, look at that.
there you go. It's all about the mind games. I think that's the strongest muscle anybody could have, and I'll tell you, one of the coolest things is like when you get to run a good storyline and you start
Yeah.
doing good promos, and it really connects with the crowd, and you start noticing, oh man, we're bringing more people in every month.
Yeah.
Um, like working with Primal Fear, I don't know if you know who they are.
Oh my god.
They work over at Super Crazy, so like me and my group of unstable, we battled them literally for like a year straight. So I love those guys. They're
Yeah.
so talented. And I've been on a lot of road trips with them, and I hope that they get more shots. Like I love seeing them at Ring of Honor. I think
Yeah.
that they fit perfectly there. They were part of the ROH dojo back when that was a thing for like a very short period, which was fun. I did a tryout for Ring of Honor as well, um,
Oh.
with Nick Camarado, who's in AEW right now. He basically played like my Jason monster. So he'd
Wow.
have like this burlap sack, and I'd have a chain around his neck, and I'd lead him around with that. And Nick
Oh.
is like gigantic; he's larger than life. Um, and we'd get in the ring, and I would take this bag off his head, and everybody would literally just be like, "Oh God!" So like it really connected. It was a fun time. I learned so much, and that was like still within like the first year that I had started. So like I was like, whoa, lots happening.
No, yeah, and like with the storylines, like I love when like the wrestlers like post promos on social media and then they like go back and forth, and then like, well, you if you want to like see what happens, you got to come out to the show. I'm like, well,
Exactly.
now I do because they're arguing on social media. I love this.
It's the number one tool that I think anybody in the wrestling business has. If you're not doing promos, if you're not building your character online, it's dead in the water. I mean, there people only see within their sphere, right? Only where
Hmm.
their little indie fed is. So that's why you have to get out, or you have to build that online presence. Somebody like Kid Bandit, who built themselves on Reddit, was like, hey, what do you guys want to see? And boom, built his following simply by giving the people what they wanted. Um,
Exactly.
and that's what wrestling is all about. It's how do you connect and
Hmm.
bringing that creativity in. It's so fascinating how many people you meet that are like from other arts. Like a lot of musicians
Yeah.
come into pro wrestling.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, and I get it if some people aren't great with social media. Not pointing any fingers.
I've been
But
taking a break.
just
It's one of
kidding.
those things for your own sanity. Sometimes it's just better
Yeah.
to take a little time off and collect and hey, maybe rebrand a little bit, do some different stuff. Got to give the people, a little bit of a break so they can miss you too.
Definitely. I mean, and like I get it. So wrestling, like there's so much good in wrestling, but like there's a lot that also goes behind backstage and like just in general, like someone's always saying something and it's great, but it's not great sometimes.
I've always done my best to just stay out of it.
Yeah.
I'm here to do my job. I want to contribute, being professional, and that's it depends on where you work. I've worked some companies that aren't professional, and
Yeah.
then I decided, well, I don't really want to work with you guys anymore, so it's okay, uh,
Yeah.
and that happens. It's about knowing your worth, and finding that life balance because just like any job shouldn't be your whole person. Like you got to have other things. Like
Yeah.
I work with kids as like a clinical manager, so I oversee a bunch of therapists, and it's really it's stressful. Like that's a tough job. Like I see a lot of
Yeah.
wild stuff, like a lot of really tough stuff to see, and wrestling is very much my escape from that. Just like it was when I was a kid, I find comfort in it. Even
Yeah.
at the shows, like I'm still out watching every match that I can, the whole time that I'm there.
Yeah, like that's what I always stand by. Like if you're having the worst week of your life or like a terrible day, once you step through that door at a wrestling show, it's gonna change completely. Because
Hmm.
like I would say it all the time, like when you continue to go to like the same shows, like going to AXW every month or going to like PPW every month, that becomes like your home and like that becomes like not blood family, but like it becomes your family and like you go to them for support and comfort. So
Yeah, you look out for each other.
yeah,
And it is about community, which I think is missing somewhat in
yeah,
society. And I think that it's good to be able to come together in one place where it's just simply to have fun. It's
hmm,
entertainment. It's to just be there and be together, right?
yeah, definitely.
Like,
So
oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, like you were saying, so many of the people behind the scenes, I really care about. Even if it's like the security people at the building, you know them after a while, and with social media, you can follow along with them, and those are sometimes your biggest supporters.
Yeah, definitely. And like it's kind of like with even wrestlers, non-wrestlers. There's a wrestler. His name's Action Andretti, and like he was just
Yeah.
at AEW, and like he wrestled at PPW. It's in Slatington, Pennsylvania. And like I always said, okay, I'm gonna get a picture with him one day, and I never got one. And then the day he debuted on AEW, I was like, and this is it. And I never got a picture with him.
Yeah, and very seldom do they come back to those like smaller
Yeah.
feds because, well, my price just went up, brother. You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
so I like it. I love that there's places for people to go now. Like you can
Yeah.
go to AEW. You can keep working to try to get to that WWE system, or
Yeah.
you can make a lot of money on the indies like Effie or Matt Cardona does now. They write their
Hmm.
own ticket. They don't have to listen to a boss. There are those independent contractors
Yeah.
that wrestlers are supposed to be.
No, definitely. Yeah. So we're gonna switch it a little bit. So if people don't know, although you're not a wrestler, but like, are you like a heel manager? Are you a baby face, or does it depend on who you're working with?
I prefer heel. I love being heel because there's so much more that a manager can do. I've done face because after a while, if you're doing such a good character as a heel, typically people start cheering for you, and then you got to turn, which
Hmm.
is that's fun too. But I prefer to be that dastardly heel. It just you can do more if you're a good guy. I can't grab you by the foot. I can't hit you with anything from behind. It's kind of
Yeah.
boring sometimes.
Yeah. Like, and then I say that all the time. There's some people that literally look like a heel, and then there's some that look like a baby face. And like
Yeah.
you definitely are a heel. Like in that ring, I was like, that man got that much energy and voice inside him.
Yeah.
Like,
I've
up for
always
it.
been the loud kid. Like I was the class clown in high school. I was, always people telling me to shut up, and it's like, no, make me. And some people
Right?
would try and never worked. So
Never worked.
to this day, I will be loud, and I love to see somebody try to stop me.
No, yeah, and like that's great because like with me being a fan, like I go to all these shows and like that's my goal to lose my voice, and 95% of the time I'm almost there. So
Yeah.
like whenever I go to a show, I'll be like screaming, and then like I will legit have people come up to me like, "How do you still have your voice? Like where does that come from?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. It just comes out and flows."
It's funny. Like, and the same would happen to me, working. Because a lot of the times I don't just do one thing. Like sometimes I'll go out and interact with the crowd, and
Yeah.
like I love doing the intermissions. But by the end of the day, I lose my voice. So I had to learn to not talk as much during show days and save it for the night.
Yeah, and like it's fun losing your voice because then they're like, "Well, what happened?" I went to a wrestling show.
Yeah, yeah. It's always fun to explain that to coworkers, and they're like,
Yeah.
you do what?"
I get that response all the time, but like now, like my coworkers, like I talk about it all the time. They're like, "Yeah, you're going to a wrestling show, nothing new." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, yeah. I'm waiting for my folks to start coming out to the shows and badgering me
Yeah.
there. That'll be fun.
I mean, it's working. I'm convincing my coworkers, like, come on, come out to our show. I actually convinced my one favorite coworker to come with me to the show this weekend, so it worked.
Nice, nice. I'm glad that we live now where you don't have to hide it. Like for a while, I was like, man, I don't really know if I want people at work to know that I do this.
Yeah.
And so for a while, I just didn't tell people. Especially again, working with kids, they get nosy, and then if they start looking up all the stuff that I'm doing, like on YouTube, that like all the clips of me, like do I really want them to know that? So a lot of the times, I won't tell the kids that I'm working with that I do pro wrestling. But like my coworkers found out, and that's always funny. And then
Yeah.
a show like The Monster Factory comes out, and then you can't really help it.
Yeah, I mean, little kids, like you said, they nosy. Like they will ask you 100 different questions. I like they'll be like look it up on. I don't know how little kids do it because when I was little, I didn't know how to work YouTube. But now they just like at the age of 3, I'm like,
Wild. It's total addiction too. I've seen it. Like these kids, they're completely addicted to it. It's
like
insane.
Coco Melon and Blippy and all that.
Oh, like
Oh my
YouTubers have
god.
destroyed the children. You YouTubers and your nefarious ways of trying to get super chats. What is this?
Well, not
It's
me, but
not yet. Again, not yet. Okay.
destroying little kids? I don't think so.
Oh no, I was thinking super chats and making money off of YouTube.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, like it's always interesting to see, like, again, these different personalities that come out of new media forms. I think it's neat. Like I think they can be heels and faces too, right?
Yeah.
And it all depends on who you talk to. Like some people think that Mr. Beast is a heel, some people think he's a face, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's debatable. Is he doing things that are good for the sake of doing good, or is he doing it to garner the attention? You know?
I've never thought of it like that, man.
Mm.
Now it got me thinking.
Hmm. Oh
I
yeah.
mean, I like that's a cool thing with wrestling. Like we have heels and faces, and like you got always get a mixture of that. And like I say it all the time. Like I love wrestling, and I'm a baby face. Like I would never be mean to anybody, but like in wrestling, everyone's like, "Well, being a heel is so easy," and I'm like, "Not for me." Like if I like scream at a little kid, I will end up crying with them. I'll be like, "I'm so sorry. Come here."
I go full character. Like
I
it's
don't know
really
how you do
funny.
it.
I worked a long time on creating the character of Dr. Carl Martin. My wife was a big inspiration because I love horror, and so does she. So we just watch a lot of horror movies. I love psychological horror. So a lot of who I base my character off of is like Dr. Loomis from Halloween,
Yeah.
but like kind of demented. And I'm gonna use Michael to get what I want, which he can't do anything out there in society. he should be a pro wrestler, you know? And it's just, for me, that kind of mad doctor where, hey, no, I'm a good guy because I'm helping you. I'm healing all of you. You need me to get better. And that character, because in my opinion, every good villain believes that what they're doing is the right thing. That's what makes a good villain.
Guys, this man's getting in my brain. Now he's making me thinking hard. Like, after we're done
Mhm.
with this podcast, I'm gonna be like, what the heck?
Absolutely. Thanos. Thanos is one of my favorite examples of that because he was so bad and almost unstoppable because he believed it so much. He believed he was like saving people from suffering by doing these awful, awful things. And I mean, we see it in society today, you know, even in the real world.
No, definitely. So my dad's in the chat, hyping you up. He's chanting your
Yeah,
name.
Dad. Let's go, Dark Fluffs.
Yeah, he's my manager. He's my manager. He's my
Yeah.
hype man. He's always like, just go after your dreams. You can do it. And like, there's a lot of times I'm like, well, if I gotta be a heel, I don't know if I can do it. And like, I don't know. It takes time to develop the character. Like, I
Yeah.
started thinking about like wrestling when I was like 12. I was like, okay, I want to be a wrestler. And like now getting older and I like talk to all these wrestlers, I'm like, no, I see the moves you do, I see the injuries. You can keep it, but I will be on the outside. I don't care if I'm a fan. I'm terrible with commentary, so I'm not even going to go there. But like, I'll be a fan. I'll do what I'm doing now, or I'll be a manager because if you hear me at shows, it's like that could work as a manager.
Oh, absolutely. I think you've got the personality for it, and I think you could even frame it because it's not even about like being mean to people.
Yeah,
It's just being like
you.
something that they don't like. Like, I'm better than you, right? Like that attitude,
Yeah.
and that just rubs people the wrong way. Or you are so hyped for the bad guy that you're managing, right? It's not even that you're doing anything bad, but I'm liking what he's doing, right? And then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, good, you know who I am, you know. It's just being smug. That's a good way to do it too. And there is an art to how you do your yelling, right? Because
Yeah.
the important part is that a manager is supposed to put the highlight on the wrestler. It's supposed to enhance them. Like, I don't want to be the center post. I want the wrestler so to really shine. So if they're getting their stuff in, I'm gonna shut up. Like, if the baby face is like getting their shine on, I'm not gonna yell as much, and I'm gonna give them that space. But then there are
Yeah.
times where, okay, there's a lull in this point of the match. I got to kind of keep the energy moving and help to build it back up, right?
Yeah.
Getting the crowd to engage. Like, what? You're not going to clap for your hero, you know? And then well, yeah, of course I am. You know, reverse psychology.
Yeah. Works all the time. It works with my cousin. I'm like, you don't want to watch Blippi, right? He's like, yes, I do. I'm like, oh god, here we go.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Maybe
no,
if
like,
you try to get excited about Blippi,
yeah,
then
let's
you get
watch
no,
Blippi.
no.
And I'm
Now it's
like,
not cool.
definitely. So my dad says, boo them, lol, to the haters.
Yeah, definitely. There are many haters out there, you know, again, with social media. So I do support groups as well
Yeah.
for wrestlers, and I do webinars. It's through um, every excuse me. You Are Loved is the nonprofit, and the wrestler formerly known as Jackson Stone. He was up here training for a couple years, and he's from Texas. So he helped set it up, and now I do like a monthly support group for pro wrestlers, and I've been doing that now for like a year and a half. And we talk about, you know, how do you handle the pressure? How do you handle social media? How do you handle trolls? You know, how do you ignore all that negativity that is out in the world?
No, yeah, and like negativity is such like a big thing, and like wrestlers always seem like they strong, like they're happy, but like deep down, there's a lot of wrestlers that are like struggling, and I'm always like, oh, if you're struggling, we struggling together because I love you.
It is. I think a lot of people use wrestling as an escape, and we so fall in love with it that we then want to just do that.
Yeah.
And I kind of call wrestling the land of misfit toys. It's where so many creative people who are typically, we're not really accepted in other parts of society. It's a little bit more like punk rock, right?
Yeah.
Where we didn't have a home and now we found one, which is that monthly show where we all get together and we get to kind of forget everything else while we're all together.
No, yeah, and like I love that because there's this wrestler. His name is Rembrandt, and he like I have like my own mental health stuff as well. Like he helped me with it, and like at the same time, like he has his own too because like he's a wrestler and like things get tough. So like
Yeah.
he was able to help me, and I'm able to help him. But like, and he's the bad guy, so like it makes sense. Obviously, everyone's booing him. I'm cheering him. Like, but now he's a babyface, and I hate it.
That's funny.
I literally told him at the show, I'm like, I think I'm gonna have to start booing you because I don't know how this crowd changed to love you, but it's not working for me.
That's funny. And again, like sometimes the bad guys, they just end up being good. Like Michelle, we when we first started, we'd be coming out not from the entranceway, but behind all the fans to scare the kids. And usually a couple of them would run away crying. And like as terrible as it is, I'm like, yes,
We
got
did
it.
it.
Yeah. But then a couple shows later, these kids come and they're wearing face paint. They're dressing as Michelle. And it's like, well, what do we do with this now? Like, they're not booing us. They're excited to see us beat people up and be crazy. Okay, well, let's lean into it. We didn't really change what we were doing, we just changed how we reacted to the crowd.
No, yeah, and like with the whole thing with the kids running away, like I feel that. I'm 16, and there was like a time that the Boogeyman wrestled at a show I was at, and I'm not even kidding. Like he's just there was like a behind scenes interaction and on screen interaction. So the on screen was this man was legitimately chasing me with worms. I was like, this is it. I'm never going to wrestling again.
That guy's wild. Like, do you know how he got into wrestling? He started on Tough Enough. He lied about his age because he was in his 40s, and like he's older, and like he showed up and he blew everybody else out of the water pretty much. So like they were like, well, we can't take you. You're too old. But then they ended up using him to become the Boogeyman, a gimmick character, which I think he does like to the 10th degree because man, those are real worms. Like that's so gnarly to me. Like the headspace he has to get himself into to do that.
No, yeah, and like that's like the character. Like he is scary. Like I'm still scared of him till this day. But like we had a whole like interaction. I was scared to death. My parents were like, "Go ahead, ask for a picture." I went up to him. I was like, "Can I get a picture?" Like while my mom and dad are standing behind me, and like so he picked me up. Like we got a picture, and then he picked me up and acted like he ran. Like then we talked backstage, and like he was so sweet. He was like, "Well, have a great show, sweetheart."
Yeah.
I'm like.
He's apparently like the nicest guy in the world too. Yeah, like he does a lot of stuff with kids and charities, and he just all around sounds like an awesome dude. How do you get into that headspace of a character? I think is so interesting.
Most definitely, but the worms are a no for me. Like they're okay for fishing,
but
I swear to God, if I would have went home and I had like a freaking worm in my shoe, I'd have been like, "That's it, I can't do this."
Let alone having to eat one or a handful of those wrigglers. And like all the way down.
Okay, we gotta switch the topic.
Yeah, that's gross.
So what would you say is your favorite thing about wrestling? Everything.
My favorite thing about watching wrestling is how you can lose yourself.
Yeah.
Right? How you just get lost in that moment. Like watching it, lately, it's Bryan Danielson. I'm watching a match of him, and I'm in it. Like I'm not on my phone. I'm not distracted. Like, and this is real to me. I think that's my favorite thing that happens when I'm watching wrestling. Like, or WrestleMania, and it's like Undertaker's final moments, and that always chokes me up. It's when real emotion comes out of it. And I think that's my favorite too with like performing is when you can get emotion. That's what the real draw is because going back to the Undertaker coming out of the curtain and talking about what it's like to get that reaction.
Yeah.
Man, that is one of the most intense feelings I've ever had in my life. And like I've done a lot of crazy stuff. And that's the best. It's the best feeling, it's the best
Yeah.
moment. It's like that. And it's fun too, because it's that creative side that I've always been looking for. I'm not like an artistic type, but I like acting. I've even tried to get into a couple of movies, and I've been in like documentaries or like little spots in a TV show, and
Okay.
like so it's fun to branch out too, because you get better at wrestling. Um, it's
Yeah.
important to learn how to do the work. Like I'm trained. I can bump. I can wrestle. I can work a full match and have. It's just a matter of I'm better as a manager, and
Yeah.
it's really I want to highlight my strengths and let the guys who are the best at that do that. Um, it's fun. It's getting to get that emotion, we absorb it. Like that's what everybody in this business does it for. It's for that reaction. If that crowd's dead, whew, it's a longer night.
Yeah, like that's how it is sometimes at AXW. Like I love the arena, I love the wrestlers, and I love the crowd, but they tend to be quiet sometimes. And my dad's like screaming. I'm like, they're not latching on, man. They're
That's
not
where
latching.
that's where I think a manager is
Hmm.
necessary, especially because that's a newer crowd. That a lot
Yeah,
of those people are learning how to watch wrestling,
yeah,
live, because I feel like a lot of them are newer fans. Um, so it's almost like teaching them who to like, who to boo, right? And sometimes the younger talent isn't as good at that because they're so in that match, spot to
yeah.
spot to spot. Meanwhile, I could be the one interacting with the crowds and building up the character and telling a little bit more story.
No, definitely. And like that's like it's not just like little kids. Like what my friend that's coming this weekend, I was like, so you know how I do like the wrestling thing? Do you want to come this weekend? She's like, what is it actually? And she's like, well, I watched WWE. I'm like, it's the same thing as WWE, just in smaller crowds.
Yeah, yeah. My wife had never really watched wrestling, and I introduced it to her, and I think she got to like it because of how much I loved it. And I would like
Yeah.
I have all the stupid like history, that I watched and all the stuff that I would like explain all the backstory to her, and so she got into it, and to the point where she supported me getting into wrestling, and continues to. She constantly tells me, whatever makes you happy, and whatever you want to succeed at. And it's important to find a partner in life that will help you to do that too.
No, yeah, and like to have the support system as well. Like even
Yeah.
if you're not a wrestler, like it is always tough for everyone, wrestler, non-wrestler.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
And I think that a lot of people try to live up to others' expectations, right? And we
Yeah.
become people who we don't want to be. We become what we think other people want us to be.
Mhm.
So just I, my number one advice to people is be weird. Be weird. Just be you, and
Yeah.
embrace it. Like if you like weird stuff, like weird stuff. If
Yeah.
you like anime, then love anime. Then go to the conventions. You know,
Yeah.
if you love horror movies, then love horror movies and collect weird stuff like spines and weird books and phrenology heads and stuff like that. Yeah. I used to carry this around and hit folks with it for a long time and talk
Oh,
to it. Its name was Vincent.
interesting.
It's
That's
got
go.
words written all over its head and stuff. Yeah.
That's gonna be in my nightmares now.
Yep. Yep. It's
No.
I love like gimmicks like that too.
Yeah. And like it's like cool like with the whole wrestling thing. Like it's still expanding. Like we said, like there's a show all the time. There's a show every weekend. And, like when
Mhm.
I go to a wrestling show and like it'll be a Saturday and I work Sunday, I'll go into work so happy. I'll be like, so just listen. You don't have to say anything because I know you don't get it. But this, and this happened. They're like, I'm so happy for you. I'm like, you don't understand, but it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Love what you love, and hopefully the people around you will understand and not be buzzkills. Because if they
Yeah.
are that way, then you find better friends.
Yeah. They're like, oh, that's so great. I support you. I'm like, I know. Thank you.
Just positivity,
Yeah,
positive
just
mental attitude, right?
exactly. Like that's why I said for me personally, I think it'd be hard for me to be a baby face because I'm always smiling, I'm always laughing. So it'd probably take a lot to like actually like make me turn a face. Like if I was a heel and I had to
Mhm.
like yell it at the crowd and all that stuff, I'll be like, I will like crack a laugh and like smile. I'm like, I can't do this.
That works though. That's such a good, like, build it into it, like
Yeah.
laugh at them.
Yeah.
They're the joke, Harlequin, that's a perfect example. Harley Quinn, she laughs at everything and doesn't take
Yeah.
anything serious, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I like the whole wrestling. Like I like the gimmicks and like
Mhm.
I like hearing more about like the wrestlers because like you don't when you see the wrestlers like yeah, you're a fan, they're a wrestler, they're in there doing what they got to do and like no, like you get especially like with the indies, you get to have like that relationship with them and like
Yeah.
once like especially like, for me for the podcast, once I have them on the podcast, like we besties until the end, man, because we always talking like how are you or seeing each other at the shows, so it's great.
Absolutely. I love that's another favorite part of the business for me is, and I really like being at schools for it, is helping guys develop a character. You know, why is your character this way? Let's give them a backstory. Tell me that story. Why? So like I bring out the therapist then. So what trauma happened to this person that made them have to be this character, this wrestler? Why do you have to win? Right? So because
Yeah.
every wrestler isn't that the idea? Every wrestler is going in there for a fight and to win, right? So
Hmm.
there's got to be a reason. And I think that that's where you start with your character.
Yeah.
Like for me, again, the doctor, he saw that these people didn't fit anywhere else in the world except for wrestling. And that's where they could almost be normal?
Yeah. I like it's so cool. Like, cause when you start as wrestling, like let's say you like with me, my podcast name is Showtime Harley, but I only put Harley because yeah. But like if you start with a name that you like at the beginning, you can always change it. Or if you don't like your character
Absolutely.
after a while or the gear or anything, that's easy. It's an easy fix and an easy change. You don't have to like go with something you don't like.
Yeah, and it should evolve. It should change over time. My look has kind of changed over time. I used to wear kind of like weird, rattier jackets that look like professor jackets. Now I wear suits more often. Nicer suits. I wear Doc Martens, and it's you kind of build the character and put it together over time, so it makes more sense.
No, yeah, like with Izzy, every time like Izzy does some crazy move on you, I'm like, ah, great, don't ruin the suit because it probably wasn't cheap.
No, she totally destroyed my suspenders the one time. She takes me and she just beels me out over the floor right in front of Kevin Kelly and Bob Evans, and my suspenders go boing, and I go, "Oh no, my fucking suspenders!" And that's what I
That's
was worried about as I'm like flying through the air.
because like I'm not worried about the fall. I'm worried about my suspenders.
Absolutely, man. Now I'm gonna have to have a whole trip out and get another pair, and that's gonna be a whole thing.
Like get
Damn it,
one.
Izzy!
So if you got a call like later tonight or tomorrow or whatever, and both WWE and AEW called you at the exact same time and said they want you to be like another version, like your own version of Paul
Mhm.
Heyman, what would you say?
I,
Or
I
which one
would
would you take?
well, I would first try to find out numbers and then try to get those numbers higher if possible, because if they're coming to me, I did something right. And then I would go to AEW immediately, because it would be a dream come true to work with some of the talents over there. I really like that they're a company that's starting out. I love that they are so open about mental health and
Hmm.
they support their people. Um, I just see so much potential there. Even
Yeah.
even if I couldn't be hired as a manager, I'd be hired as like a backstage therapist. That would be like the dream job if I couldn't do that. But
Oh yeah.
I would love, because Paul Heyman is definitely, again, like he's totally somebody that I try to steal from, because he's a genius. You don't stick around in this business for that long, and for no reason.
No, yeah, and like that's the thing, like with WWE and AEW, like they both have their goods and like their bads, and like especially like with AEW, like let's AEW, like you have your freedom there, like you could still like Action Andretti at one point was still like he was on their roster, but like he was still doing some shows, but not all of them, obviously, and like it's cool. Like with WWE though, it's like you're more like you're restricted, like you can't really do the indie shows unless you're done.
It's part of the system then.
Yeah, and like with WWE as well, like the storyline is so like strict. Like they have it so straightforward, but like AEW, it's always crazy.
Yeah, it's very much like you've got to do it by the script in WWE, and for me, I like the creativity. I don't know if that would be the best atmosphere for me. I like to go off the cuff. Like I don't really plan my promos very much. I don't write them down very often. And I like to just shoot from the hip and see what I come up with. I might have like a couple bullet points, but otherwise, I just try to be organic with it.
No, yeah, and like I give that to all you wrestlers because like when me and my ex co-host at the time, when we did our first show, it was like we were doing like interviews. So like we had the script and I would like practice like and record myself and I was like, I said that one thing wrong. I'm a failure. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
But like and then like once you actually do it, it's like when you actually have like your first show, it's like like big relief off your shoulders. Like even though it was like a short show, it was still like great for me because like being young and being on a show, you can't go wrong there.
No, and it's all about reps. The first time you do anything is not going to be good, right? Like the first time that you try to play an instrument, it's not going to be good. Usually the first podcast that somebody tries to do, it's not very good. You have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
But it's important to be brave, to be vulnerable, because that's how you get places. You don't get places by being comfortable. You have to change, right? Like, so get out there, get uncomfortable, and try to learn something that you're not going to be good at first, and try to get good at it. They say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at whatever you are going to do. So that's a lot of time. And it's worth it if you care about it. Like I've seen guys that their first day of promos, and they can barely put a couple words together and they're like shaking. And I've seen them grow to then telling full stories, shooting their own promos, creating their own characters. And I love that. That's the coolest thing in the world, is to see these younger guys just living their dreams. And I'm all about encouraging them.
Oh yeah, and that's something too. Like that's like I really enjoy like seeing like a wrestler like once they debut and like you can follow their journey with them. Because like my brother, his name is Nolan Pierce, and like I saw him on like his debut show, so like that was cool. And like now he got the title, and I was like, oh my god, look at you, you're growing up so fast. Although he's older than me, but
okay. And it's true, it happens so fast. Like before you know it, it's like, oh my gosh, I've been in the business almost 6-7 years now. Like what? And what have I been doing this whole time? Oh yeah, I've done some cool stuff. I was in PWI magazine as ones to look out for. And that was fun. That was a couple years ago. Getting to do Ring of Honor, perform in the 2300 arena. I've gotten to do a lot of really cool stuff. I've been very lucky, very fortunate for.
No, definitely. And like that's why I say wrestling is such a great thing. Like I don't know, man. I always say it all the time. I tell my friends like I love this thing, and they're like, you love it a lot, because I always talk about it. I wake up and I text my friend like, okay, so this is what happened in the wrestling world, and she's like, oh, okay. It's like 8:00 in the morning. You're telling me about wrestling? I'm like, you gotta get used to it.
Yeah, it's a 24-hour news cycle even with wrestling now, where like something's happening every day. Like it's the new Twitter trend. Like, what's it gonna be today? So it's tough to keep up with, and it can be overwhelming. That's why, hey, I recommend everybody try to take a time out. And if you're in the business, use social media only as a tool for business. It's not worth, putting yourself out there as a person. It's not worth getting into arguments out there. Like I am guilty of having done that in the past, and I never again. Like, it's just not worth it. So like, try to stay focused on your positives and what you're trying to accomplish. Don't get caught up in other people's negativity, because it'll sink you faster.
No, yeah, and like even if you like, let's say there's you obviously you have like your personal and then you have your wrestling page. Like there may be someone on like your personal page that might take it and like turn it into a whole thing that you didn't
Absolutely.
say, and then it drags it into the wrestling. And then like when in wrestling, everybody knows everything. Everybody's always talking. So
Like,
that's why
how
like
many people have we seen lose jobs over, social media posts,
hmm
or stuff that came up from their past? And it's
yeah.
like, these days, I mean, your whole life has pretty much probably been digital, right? Like, so like, it's all chronicled on social media in some regard. Like, and that's kind of scary, because
Yeah.
like, you have to be careful. If you make a mistake, unfortunately, it can come back to bite you in the future.
And like even if you can be involved now, like it like you can always have your foot in that door. Like you can
Yeah.
always like starting at like let's say 15 or like 12, like Nolan Pierce that I mentioned. Like he started like help setting up like the ring and the
Right.
chairs and like it's the little stuff that helps you like make your character even more because it's like if you're dedicated to like one or many companies, like they'll be like, well, that kid has been with us for so long and like
Yep.
look at where they started and look at what they're at now.
Absolutely. Build that resume. You
Yeah.
you have to build a reputation in this business to be reliable and professional. Like you said, helping out with the ring, taking the chairs down at the end of the night. Like, being there for that stuff is very important. It's paying dues. And I think a lot of people have ruined their own careers by thinking that they're too good for that. And
hmm
there will never be a day where I think that I'm too good to, help take stuff down.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
yeah.
it's one of my favorite parts about the show is helping to set up.
No, yeah. And like the promoters and everyone, like all that little help that you do is like good for them. And like they'll take your help. Like with
Hmm.
me, I got a loud mouth. Everyone knows that. So like at wrestling shows, they're like, they come up to me specifically, be like, you want to do like 50-50s and raffles? I'm like, are you insinuating I'm loud? And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. I'll do it anyways.
And that's the thing. You take the opportunities. Take
Yeah.
what's offered. If somebody gives you a shot, say yes.
Yeah.
That's because, again, you're not above anything in this business. I think I started out and I was taking tickets for literally like the first 2 months that I was training, and that was all I did. And then I got the opportunity to do ring announcing, so I did that because I wore suits when I would go to shows, and so I
Oh,
was already ready to do it when we didn't have a ring announcer. Then I changed from being a ring announcer to becoming a manager because I turned on Danny Cage, and boom, we took it to the print with that. And that it's all about how you grow, and what you offer, and what you say you want to do.
yeah, like I had an interview earlier this week with another female wrestler, and she's like, even if like your times change, there's always room for someone else. Like
Hmm.
someone else can take your spot, or like there's always room somewhere else for you. So
Hmm.
like if commentary isn't your thing, well, try being a manager, try being a ring announcer. That's why I said do not put me on commentary though, because I had a birthday party at a wrestling show, and it wasn't a legitimate match, but like I had two birthday matches because usually they give one, but I'm special, so they gave me two. And they had me and my friends commentary, and like we were paying attention to the wrestling, but we weren't talking wrestling related. We're like, so that guy's hair looks like ramen noodles. The other one looks like cheese.
Hey, maybe that I think would connect with a younger crowd, though. Maybe it's like TikTok clips. That's a great way to get over. But it is important to do all of that. Like, I over at AAW, I do interviewing,
Mm-hmm.
and I do commentary on my own. I'll do on matches to practice, because you got to be able to do everything in this business to some degree,
Yeah.
because you never know when you'll get a shot.
Yeah, and like even if wrestling isn't your thing and like you're more intended for like a manager or commentary, it's good to still I got told this from a lot of wrestlers. It's good to still train because like
Yeah.
if they ever like someone has an emergency and can't make it to the show, well now you can step in and like
Hmm.
have your time to shine.
Yep. And you should know how to protect yourself in the ring. You
Yeah.
should know how to, roll. You should know how to do a lot of the basic moves so you know where they're gonna go. If you
Hmm.
don't know where the match is gonna move, how are you gonna be where you need to be?
Yes,
Um, I
exactly.
to understand the wrestler's timing, right? You have to know why they're doing what they're doing. So even if you want to be a manager in this business, go to a wrestling school. Go. A lot of these schools around here now offer that, and I
Yeah.
think you can get a lot out of that.
Yeah, like even if you go and say, I'm more intense, this is from literal times that I said, I was like, well, I don't want to be a wrestler. I just want to be a manager. And they were like, well, it's still good that you can have like all these things. So training in a
Yeah.
regular wrestling school, doing exactly what the wrestlers are doing, like, watch, you start training, you'll change your mind. I was like,
Hmm. You
mm,
never know, and that's the thing, and it makes sense to be fearful too.
yeah.
It makes sense to be scared. Like it's all completely unnatural to do as a person to fall and not like catch yourself. Like it's so unnatural. It makes no sense. We're doing things that evolution has tried to get out of human beings, and we're saying,
Hmm.
no, I have to hurt myself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My dad says the process shows in time. Indeed,
very
it
true.
does.
Trust the process. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, has there been a venue? It could be anywhere that you worked for that like you managed in or did anything in, and that you were like, I really like this place, and I will go here anytime I get the opportunity.
Right, I'd say AXW. AXW has been that kind of fun for me. I think every time I go there, there's so many positive people. It's a good group of professionals, and there's a lot of room to grow.
Yeah.
I see a lot of good things for that company. AAW again, a lot of the same talent. So in this area, usually if you go to one locker room, it's almost the same as the other with a couple swap. But like I really like the vibe there. The Hamburg Fieldhouse just has a different energy to me.
Yeah.
Like to work in these kind of older places that have a lot of character. I'm all about it. Like I like wrestling in malls too. I think that's pretty fun. Like Rise Wrestling out in Pittsburgh. They work out of like Uniontown Mall, and
Wow.
it's just so cool. It's so weird. It's like the back rooms. Like we're
Yeah.
wrestling in the back rooms. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. It's different, but it's cool.
Yeah, yeah. I like weird and different. That's how I am.
Yeah. So like, and it's like, especially with AXW, you walk in and everyone's like there to greet you. Like there's tables and people on that side, and then there's that side. No matter where you walk, someone's gonna be like greeting you. Like
Yes.
with me, I walk in the Golden Era. I absolutely hate them. Well, like I like them, but I hate them at the same time.
Sure.
So
Oh, I
like when I
totally
walk
understand.
in, exactly. So when I walk in and they're like, "You're not gonna buy a T-shirt," I'm like, "Well, hello to you too, then."
You're not gonna buy a T-shirt? All that Goldie charisma.
Oh my god, they need. I don't know what they need, but we need to get a tag team in there that will like shut the Golden Era down
Oh
because I am
God,
so
love it.
tired of them.
Yeah, yeah. There's some dweebs. I've known them a long time too.
They're good
Um,
wrestlers, but they give.
I'm excited to see their careers because it's so cool. That's what I love about like AXW is that they use a lot of younger talent.
Yeah,
Like Mimi, another like notorious Mimi. I've
yeah,
known her for a long time, and she started when she was 15. I've seen her that whole time growing up into the wrestler that she is now, and that again, another one of my favorite things about the business is seeing these people progress and become really great people.
no, yeah, definitely. And like that's my main show that I go to all the time is obviously AXW and PPW, and
Hmm.
like PPW's had so many transitions, and like that's just as a company. So obviously they go through changes as well. And it's
Hmm.
like they went from Hazelton to like Broadheadsville to now Slatington, and it was like cool because like I've been with them through all of that. So like
Yeah.
all the wrestlers that are a part of it like literally seen me grow up, and they're like, "Oh my god, you're getting so old." I'm like, I'm not that old, guys.
Yeah,
But like it's cool when they get to see that experience, like they get to grow up with you.
it's really weird like seeing kids grow up as like that performer too because it's like, oh my gosh, you're grown up like you're this tall and now I'm really old. Oh no.
Yeah. And like that's funny because at the last AXW show I had that like experience because like the wrestler came and his name was Victor Andrews, obviously. And like I haven't seen him in years. Like he's seen me grow up from like Hazleton, like PPW. And then I go to the show and I have the picture on my phone of me and him when we were little. And he's like, "Is that me?" I'm like, "Yeah, this was us from years ago."
Mr.
Like,
Everything, right?
yeah. It is cool, like that experience. Like people are like, "Oh my god, do you remember me?" And they're like, "Hell yeah."
He's awesome. I really like Victor Andrews.
Yeah.
He's been around and he's really kind of a journeyman. I hope he gets his shot too someday.
No, definitely. And if it's not him, it's definitely gonna be his son because his son puts in a lot of work. And, like,
Yeah, that's
his
true.
son scares me.
He's got more time in the ring than most wrestlers now training.
I mean, that's good for him because when wrestling company wants him, it's gonna be like, well, I started training when I was like 4, so
Exactly.
I have more experience.
Yeah, but that bump card's gonna be a little shorter, maybe.
Maybe. So obviously we kind of said like stepping away from like social media in general, like wrestling, like for your mental health. Do you think there will be like a time that you're like, okay, well, I'm done with wrestling? And do you think that's going to be like more of a mindset thing or something like an age thing or just, I don't know.
That's a good question because I'm not sure. It ends for everybody at some point, you know. And I think it's a measure of, does it make me happy, right? Is it worth the energy that I put out into it and then I get back? And it's okay if it doesn't work out, you know. I've done a lot that I'm really proud of. I've accomplished more than I ever thought I would. I hope I get to do more. I would love to get out to more companies and travel and see the world through wrestling. But at the same time, you know, I've got a great career in mental health. I'm getting to help a lot of people in my community. So if I got like an opportunity to do more in that, I might step away in favor of that just because, hey, financially it makes more sense, you know, and overall that might take me further. And which, I mean, that doesn't mean it's the end of wrestling either. Maybe I start my own little promotion. Maybe I have my own company someday where I get to tell stories and bring people in and help them to, you know, become who they want to be in wrestling.
No, yeah, and like if you step away from wrestling or social media, it's always going to be there. So it's not like you'll be missing some stuff, but you'll still hear about it from someone because not everyone takes a break. Like with me, there was at one point like I took like a break, multiple breaks off like social media, and I'm like, "Dad, what's happening? I'm missing it all." And then he's like, "Well, this is what's happening." But like at the same time, it was good for yourself because like technology now is like such a powerful thing, and like you wake up and you're just like, okay, well, let me see what's going on in the wrestling world.
Yeah.
Or like just cell phones in general. And
doom scrolling, right? We get bored and you just start going, and before you realize it, you've absorbed so much negative stuff that we don't need to expose ourselves to, that, you know, you get tired of it. Compassion fatigue, that's the actual term for it. You know, where I've cared too much, I can't care anymore. So like it's important to take breaks, and it's important to not overwhelm yourself or feel like you're responsible for like viewing this, and to be able to step away, because just about anything else in our lives, too much of anything is not a good thing.
No, yeah, and like I feel that like for real because like I have the 2 jobs, I have the summer school, and like I have the podcast, and like every time my friends are always like, Harley, you're like my parents, my friends are always like, Harley, you're still young, you still deserve to like have your fun, and like if you need to take a break from a job or the podcast, it'll always be there. You can always come back. The families will be there.
So. I think it is very important, especially for folks that are young in this business, to still take time to be young, have fun, you know, be young and dumb while you can, you know, like honestly, because sometimes I think that you get too into it that later on in life you're gonna make up for it, and it might not be the right time for it, you know. So when you're young, be young. it's fun.
Yeah.
And then when you're old like me, you can settle down and start being responsible.
Yeah, responsible. It's never too early to start being responsible, but
Oh, financial responsibility. I think everybody should be taught that. If there's like that's really important. Like do wrestling, but always make sure that you are taking care of yourself. Like because again, injuries happen. You got to have a backup plan. Stone Cold.
Did you heard that, right?
What
the hell? I don't know. My town is scary because it's a small town, but there's crazy people in it. So I don't know if that was a firework or.
I don't know. That sounded like glass shattering. I thought Stone Cold was going to come out.
Like my cats, they usually like always making sounds, but that ain't them this time. I don't know what that was.
Well, folks, if Harley somehow just suddenly disappears,
it's okay.
Wonderful talking to you.
Till next time, if Harley's still alive.
Yeah. If not, maybe I'll still be here.
Definitely. So, do you have like merch, or it's not really your thing?
I have like a pro wrestling tees store. It's unstable on pro wrestling tees. I have a really cool shirt that I actually like. It's like half my face, half his face. It's kind of neat. And a couple of throwback ones, but I don't really have that much merch. As a heel manager, people don't really want to buy my stuff. I have like the business cards that I love to throw into the crowds, and hey, follow me on social media, and that's really all I need from you.
Yeah, pretty much. And just hate me, like that's cool too.
Yeah, that's fine too. That was
there it is. That was a firework this time, but the first one. Now my cats are running because they scared. I mean, this town scares me. What am I saying? I'll be running with my cat sometimes and be like, I need my mom. I'm scared, man.
I'm from York, Pennsylvania, so it's not that different from Hamburg. Like I get it. And it's Philly, like literally they're probably shooting off fireworks like now too. So
everywhere.
I'm used to it.
All the time.
Everywhere, all the time. Climbing poles. They have to grease the poles around here when there's sporting events, because if we win, the people will climb them and hurt themselves. And because they grease them, now the Philadelphians believe it's a challenge, and now I have to climb the greased pole. So that's lovely when you see on the news, yep, they're busting out the Crisco.
Okay, so I gotta ask, since like you live in that area, are you an Eagles fan?
I am. I just because I live here, I love it.
No.
I've been here for that Super Bowl win. Like it's just, I was never even really a football fan until I got here, and then like, man, wow, I get it. Like I see why you guys are so passionate. Like I love Philly. It's a wild town. I love Center City. Like it's right now. Like again, when you're young, a city like this is perfect. And I mean, Hamburg's super close. Mm-hmm. So you could get like they've got Temple, Drexel, so many great schools out here.
Yeah.
Good city.
And it's funny with the whole like thing, because I started like looking into my colleges, obviously, because I'm going to be graduating. Right. And like I keep getting these ones from Philly. I'm like, I don't know if I belong in Philly, because I'm a Kansas City fan, and like I get dominant on that. I'm like, no, these Eagles fans got it, because you Eagle fans, I say it all the time, you crazy.
Yeah. Although I don't think that they're necessarily dangerous to opposing fans, but they will taunt. Like my favorite one, I think it was it was right before the Super Bowl, and I can't remember what team it was, but there's this woman in this kid's face going, "You need to shut up right now." And he goes, "Go Birds," just right in her face, just over and over again. And she just like loses it. It's one of my favorite clips of all time.
Oh yeah, and like I work in retail, like a grocery store. So when it was Super Bowl weekend, I was going in. I had like Kansas City face paint. I had the shirt. These customers like were coming at me. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna live to see the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was a hairy situation.
Every time they were like, "Are you a Kansas City fan?" I'm like wearing everything. They're like, I'm like,
no,
I'm a Giants fan.
What gives you that idea?
Right? My dad is a Giants fan, so like when it came to the Eagles and like the Kansas City, he was like, "Well, my daughter likes Kansas City, and I don't like the Eagles." Like if you get him started on football, he will shut up.
Oh, I believe it. That's a dad thing, I think.
Yeah,
Very much a dad thing. Thank you, Dad.
we love
Number
you.
one fan.
I love you.
Yes.
So, if people want to follow you on social media, where can they follow you at?
Hold on. Doc C. Martin, somewhere there. That's my Instagram. Dr. C. Martin, Dr. Carl Martin on Twitter. Search that and you'll find me. I'm on YouTube too. You can see some of our old matches. Fun. And I can't thank you enough. Whitney, Showtime Harley, thank you for having me on the Talk of the Ring show. I hope it's not the last time we chat.
Definitely not. Thank you so much for coming on. It was fun. I was telling people I was so excited for tonight's podcast because like I said, there's not a lot of managers. So if I get that opportunity to talk to a manager, I'm like, well, I want to do exactly what you're doing. So let me DM you afterwards and be like, well, what can I do to start doing?
I'll steer you in the direction of some other female managers too that you can start talking to and picking their brains too.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a great night.
You too.